Life may sometimes feel a little, or a lot, or exactly like this to you. And that's normal. Lots of research and data show that by far most people, about 90% of all workers, hate their jobs. And we don't even need all this overwhelming proof and evidence. Why look at all of these studies? This is such a common phenomenon. We can all see it ourselves, with friends and family. Not everyone has a passion for one of the paid options they have. In fact, most don't. And even people who would technically enjoy their job, forced 8 hours? Too much is just too much. Even the most enjoyable activity can lose its fun when forced to do it for 8 hours every day. So the problem is, a day has only 24 hours. You sleep 8, you work 8, and the remaining 8 are for going to the bathroom, peeing, pooping, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, doing your hair, having breakfast, traveling to work, traveling back home from work, buying groceries, cooking, eating, doing the dishes, doing laundry, opening letters, checking emails, paying bills, repairing your car, door, window, anything can break really, and so on and so on. And with that, you have less than a third of your life for yourself, your hobbies, to do what you want. What do you do with this tiny bit of free time that you have? Of course, people want to have fun, satisfaction, and enjoy this little free time they get. And video games help with that. How does it make you feel when you, this puny little character, defeat huge, gigantic enemies? Good, right? Mom, I just beat a monster that was hundreds, thousands of times my size. It feels good, and that's a very normal human psychological effect. Winning despite a handicap, a disadvantage, means you're a lot better, right? Imagine beating the best melee player with tiny Donkey Kong. But, of course, that's not really what's happening here. Does the enemy really have an advantage and you a disadvantage? And with your insane gaming skills you manage to triumph, despite the odds being against you? Well, let's look at that a bit closer. Because really, the player is being tricked into thinking that. It's just an illusion. Example 1. I love Banjo-Tooie. So for this video, I'll make it the first out of many examples I will show. You could pick any boss, it doesn't matter. In this case, let's look at this one. A huge anglerfish, many times the size of Banjo and Kazooie. Instead of simply swimming towards and eating the player, it just swims back and forth, occasionally shooting a slow projectile that's easily avoided. In Super Mario 64, look at how big your hitboxes are, and now how close the enemy has to be in order to hit you. But these are games for children, right? Of course they are made easier. Let's look at some games for adults. Dark Souls 1, infamous for its difficulty. Can only real gamers beat it? At first glance, it looks like the player is in a clear disadvantage. He's way smaller than his enemies, meaning he has less range, does less damage, and has less health. Is that not a disadvantage? Well, those things separate and isolated, yes. But if you look at the big picture and consider all of the context, then the player is actually the one in advantage. First of all, who's the one that can heal many times during the fight? Exactly, that's the player. And why does he get to heal so many times? Because of this. Because he has time and plenty of opportunities. And why? Because he's not fighting real humans, but dumb NPCs. Look where the player is standing. And now look what this huge, dangerous looking monster decides to do. Attack nothing. Attack the air. Attack where the player is clearly not standing. In fact, he's very far away. And this happens all the time. Now I'm not calling Souls games easy. I have never played one. But that's not even necessary in order to see what the game developers are doing. And what they are doing is this. Making fights seem more difficult than they really are. They might still be difficult, sure. But they would be a lot more difficult if they were more realistic. Let's look at Shadow of the Colossus. Wow, what an insanely huge monster. But instead of simply doing this, it moves super slowly, lets the player climb around on its body and beat it. That's not what the player remembers though. What the player remembers is being thousands of times smaller and weaker, but still, with a lot of imagined gamer skill, somehow beat it. Guys, look at me. I just beat this huge monster despite being in such a disadvantage. Not really, but that's how the player feels. Elden Ring. Again, I want to repeat this. I am not calling these games easy, but they are easier than they should be. And that's in order to make players feel good about themselves. And that's a good thing. We will come to that in a bit. Instead of eating you when it has the opportunity, this gigantic snake is nice enough to spit the player back out. And sometimes it takes a nap letting you hit it. There's the dodge roll, which grants invincibility, so the player just ignores attacks like he's a ghost, and even gigantic attacks like these are ignored, which would usually send your bones flying all over the globe. The last example, so this video won't be multiple hours long. Resident Evil 4 secretly removes enemies if you die, making you feel like you improved and finally figured out how to beat the section. When in reality, the game just removed enemies and made the section easier for you, making the felt improvement an illusion. Oh, and in many games there's rubber banding, meaning that if you're behind, everyone ahead of you becomes slower to, again, give you this success despite all odds feeling. In Mario Kart you get better items if you're behind. Comeback mechanics, giving the player the feeling that they can always just come back and win. Winning is fun, and video games make us feel like winners. Even if we're a lot smaller, or worse in Mario Kart, we can win no matter what. The feeling of achievement feels good, and video games give us this feeling of achievement. There are tons of cases for this. Some games make it more obvious, and as we just established, some games hide how they make things easier for you. If you want more on this topic, or if you don't believe me, there's also a MadPet's video he made years ago. With all of this said and referring back to the introduction, video games are for fun. I even made a dedicated video about this. Video games exist for your joy and satisfaction. And yeah, sometimes game developers use a few tricks in order to achieve that. And that's totally fine, because what matters in the end is that we, the consumers, the players, have a good time. So whether they make enemies seem more dangerous and more difficult than they actually are, by making them big and scary looking, but then make them super slow and dumb, giving us a lot of free hits, removing enemies if we struggle, giving us better items and slower opponents if we're behind, video games do whatever it takes to make us feel good, like winners, who achieve great things. Yes, developers use tricks, but so what? Life is to be enjoyed, and video games make us enjoy it. That's my video on game developers using tricks to make us enjoy our lives more. I hope you liked it. If you did, then there's a like button for you, and consider subscribing. Bye!